Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org, for more info, or you can email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Reverend Carl Yount. We'll be discussing his fantastic book, Whispering Spirits, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you guys want to get everything that Reverend Carl has to offer, do yourself a favor. Now, you have to go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble to purchase the book, but go directly to his personal website, revcarlyount.com. There, you'll find this book, Whispering Spirits, but you'll also find a second poetry book that Rev Carl has written as well, entitled Silent Echoes. Both are listed at his website. You'll be able to find more information on Reverend himself. So one more time, that's revcarlyount.com. And I will say, Rev Carl was brought to People of Distinction today by some of the best movers in the business. UR Link Print and Media Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, move it to UR Link. You can find them at urlinkpublishing.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Rev Carl here on the line because his book that we're going to be discussing today, as I stated already, it's a poetry book. Now, what I love so much about his poetry is, guys, listen, the Reverend's not shying away from the difficult times of life. It's just real. It's raw. I mean, that's one of the best ways that I can articulate it. I commend him, and I love the fact that he's pulling from his own life experiences, right? And the journeys that life has taken him on. And through those culmination of experiences, he's written this book of poetry, but at the end of the day, it's meant to inspire. But in life, we can't shy away from the dark times. And even if we could, why would you want to? Because at the end of the day, the only reason why we appreciate the light and the sunshine is because we've gone through the darkness. And I'm so glad that we have him here on the line because, listen, he's written the book. He's the one pulling from his experiences. He's going to be able to articulate all the nuances in his book much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring him here with us. Reverend Carl, first and foremost, thank you so much for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and thank you for that really good intro.
I appreciate it, Reverend. Thank you very much. Listen, it is an honor to have you on our network. I'm very much looking forward to this. I think this is something that our listening audience is really going to be able to benefit from. And everybody else involved, whoever picks up this book, I mean, from doing my research, from talking to you on the pre-screening call, I mean it, man. This is something that needs to be on everybody's shelf. It is something that has such a beneficial message behind it. And again, the realness, that raw talent that you put in, the raw depictions that are shown, I think is really going to be something that's going to be so beneficial. So let's hold off slightly now before we jump into the book. Tell our listening audience a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm native to Western New York, originally. Mm-hmm. Growing up on a small farm just south of Buffalo. Once I got out of school and that, took up at the Carney for a good 10 years of my life with the traveling show, and with it being down in the summer, or in the winter, I tended to get out and around. That's when I spent my time in New York City with the poetry crowd out there. Went out to California for a while. Didn't really care for that too much, but it was an adventure. Then I kind of settled down back here in Western New York with working various jobs, from dishwasher and that, and wound up working at a nursing home where I became a certified nurse's aide, helping elderly. And my stepfather was starting to suffer the effects of Alzheimer's, and I took some added courses so I could actually specialize in a dementia ward, which in itself was a big experience. Mm-hmm. And for that last 20 years, I've worked at a pet cemetery. I'm now managing the grounds and the operations there.
Fantastic, Reverend Carl. We appreciate it, man. Listen, what an eclectic background. We're going to have you back on the show just to discuss all of your experiences, because I'm sure you have stories for days. That's incredible, man. Thank you for sharing. Now let's jump right in. Whispering Spirits. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, it's a collection of, well, I've got, from all my years of writing poetry and that, I've got notebooks upon notebooks of stuff that I've written. And Whispering Spirits was the first collection I put together for publication, obviously. And I went through the notebooks and picked poems that I wanted to use to introduce myself to the world, I guess. Ranging everywhere from things I wrote back in the early 80s, late 70s, to a few of them that had been written within the last 20 years. Yeah, the title, Whispering Spirits, actually a good friend of mine actually came up with that. But I think she's thinking of my muse, which is, I'm one of those people that when I sit down with a notebook and a pen, well, they talk about how William Blake had angels whispering in his ears. I guess it's not maybe angels, but it's like this voice gets in my head, an emotion and a story idea, and as my pen moves across the paper, the words flow out from it. It's epic poems, so it's stories, and honestly, a lot of times the stories end different from what I thought they would when I started.
Wonderful. Now, next concept that I want to go into. So we know a little bit about the book. We know about the title, which I love the title. It's so intriguing. I mean, instantly it just grabs your attention. It sucks you in. So it's perfectly titled. It's wonderful. Now, talk to our listening audience. Let's go into the concept of inspiration. What inspired you to write this book?
The inspiration to write the book would be that I felt I wanted, I had something being shared with me. Yeah, I'm a reverend. I don't know why I'd want to beat around the bush to the idea of, from that above us all, being shared through me, and to try to get it to people so that they can hear it, they can relate to it. The nice thing about poetry is I tell people that it's not like prose. I'm not relating a definite, solid idea. If 5 people read the same poem of mine and they get 5 different ideas, 5 different emotions, though usually the emotion part is usually pretty kind of set, but still different levels, then I feel that the poem has done what it's supposed to do.
Now, of course, this is not the only book that you've written. So you have Whispering Spirits, you have Silent Echoes, both of which are poetry books. Now, you talked about, again, a lot of your experiences growing up during the winter months when you weren't traveling for work. You would spend a lot of time in New York and with poetry groups. Now, what inspired you to write poetry?
Actually, my dyslexia. I do have difficulty with organized sentences, paragraphs, and in an English class in high school, the English teacher read Xanadu. I mean, at that, I for some reason always wanted to write. I was told many times I couldn't do that. That was insane. But for as long as I remember, I always wanted to write. And when he read Xanadu, it wasn't the first poem I ever heard. But sitting there in that class, and the way that I saw this strong man, not the teacher, the image of the poetry, this strong man with his long hair, the flowing of it, the going down the river through the caverns of ice, and this imagery going through my mind. And I think that's when the Spirit really touched me and said that I can do this. I can bring this imagery to people and have them see these things in their own mind the way that it's meant to be.
That is incredible. Your dyslexia, of course, as you were growing up and as you're articulating, you had this interest to write, but the dyslexia was almost like a barrier preventing you from being able to do that. And then the poem Xanadu was really what inspired you to actually embark upon the journey and not only just write, but specifically write poetry.
Yes. Yeah.
That is fantastic. You didn't allow this barrier to stop you. You found a way to chip away at that wall and break through. And that doesn't necessarily mean it was easy. That doesn't mean it happened overnight. But the fact that you continued to push forward is absolutely astonishing. I mean, that is such an amazing and really inspirational narrative. Thank you so much for sharing. Guys, again, here on the line with Reverend Carl Yount, we're discussing his fantastic book, Whispering Spirits, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or through his personal website, revcarlyount.com. Now, Rev Carl, we know about you, we know about the poetry, we know what inspired you to embark upon this journey. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you if you could read one of your poems for us, please.
Sure. I picked one here, written to a for a woman that I knew that we were very close, but at some point she quit coming around to visit. But the title of the poem is Mariah. I sit to wait for her. She does not come. I listen and wait for her. She does not come. As her whisper comes not on the wind, her gentle knock comes not at my door, her subtle kiss meets not my lips. I watch and wait for her. She does not come. I feel and wait for her. She does not come. As the warmth of her soothing touch, the softness of her silken flesh, the sweetness of her embracing smile, I wish and wait for her. She does not come. I dream and wait for her. She does not come. As she is not a whisper to carry upon the wind, she is not a fantasy lost in the twisting wind. She is nothing but the wind's own breath as it carries past in one fleeting flurry. As once here, she is now gone.
It's so relatable because, listen, we've all been in relationships. And as relationships go, unfortunately, they come to an end. Rev Carl, next thing that I'd love to ask, I know that this is all taken from your personal experience. Now, what would you say was a highlight for you? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to writing this book?
I have several friends who have helped me with, this is all my writing and everything, but with the taking it from my notebooks where the spelling is horrible and a few, and they've helped me greatly with getting these straightened out with the spelling and that, so I could send them to the publisher.
Yeah.
But one of the things that my niece, who is in her, I think she's about 20 years old, not in the target group, my sister said that she was going to try to read my book, but my niece wouldn't set it down. And that just struck me as so funny because it's like, well, a young woman is in that age bracket's not my market group. And that just really, really touched me.
Listen, touching up on the very first thing that you said in terms of having a team of people around you that helped orchestrate and really bring this to fruition. A, that's fantastic. B, listen, we all need a team of people around us. We always need assistance. We always can benefit from a helping hand. And then B, to hear about your niece. And yeah, granted, she may not be the specific intended audience. But like I said, with the one poem that you just read for us a few moments ago, you're talking about concepts that are relatable. Whether it's relatable to 18, 19, 20-year-old or related to a 40, 50, 60-year-old, relationships are relationships, and those experiences may vary based upon your age, but the content is still so relatable. And again, you do yourself a service for not only you, but also for your readers when you don't shy away from the darkness. Your poem is talking about a breakup. Your poem is talking about the yearning and the longing for someone that is no longer there. That's a tough pill to swallow, but it's part of life. Now, listen, as we're starting to tie this wonderful interview up, the last thing that I would love to ask before we close out on one of your poems, what are you hoping to see people do with this book?
I really just hope that people can embrace it to to get the meaning, it's very metaphorical. It's very symbolistic. It helps bring up emotions that sometimes people just tend to keep a little buried too much. I'd have to say, I just hope that people can read and embrace and enjoy the stuff that I've found such a release in my own life. When things were tight and hard, and I sat with my pen and my pad, and I just took it in and released it out through that pen, and hopefully that these words can reach people and help them do the same.
There it is. Listen, what more can be said? You know what you got to do. I've said it already. I'm going to say it one more time just to make sure that it's impressed. Head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, his personal website, revcarlyount.com, and pick up your copy of Whispering Spirits. While you're at it, pick up Silent Echoes as well, both by Reverend Carl Yount. You surely will not be disappointed. Rev Carl, thank you so much. The only way that I can think of closing out this interview would be on another one of your poems, please.
Can you see me? Can you see me? Do you see me? Can you hear me? Do you hear me? Can you touch me? Do you feel me? Here, look at me and see the scars left within my flesh, so deep and cold, so riddled with time. These scars left by when I dared to love. These scars left by when I dared to care. These scars left by when I dared. Here, listen to me, and hear the story I can never tell. So deep and cold, so riddled with pain. These stories of when I dared to love. These stories of when I dared to care. These stories of when I dared. Here, feel my thoughts and touch the flesh that covers my soul, so empty and cold, so empty of love, so empty of care, so empty, so empty, so empty.
Powerful stuff. Rev Carl, this has been an absolute honor. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
And thank you for having me.